Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise, turning those overwhelming stacks of cybersecurity reports into clear, actionable intelligence for you. If you've been trying to make sense of all the headlines lately, massive breaches, global cyber conflicts, AI being weaponized, well, you're definitely not alone. So, our mission today is pretty straightforward. Give you the ultimate shortcut. We've dug into the 2025 cyber reports you sent over, focusing on the really critical shifts, how attackers are changing the cybercrime economy, and those high stakes geopolitical threats.
Yeah, if you boil down all these different sources, threat intel, geopolitical analysis, the core finding is this. The attack surface isn't just growing, it's dramatically changing shape. Attackers are finding success by hitting three areas hard, areas organizations often, underdefend. Historically, we're talking identity, the cloud, and what we're now calling the new perimeter, those unsecured edge devices.
Okay, that sets our course. Let's dive into that, starting with where the battle lines seem to be redrawn that old network perimeter. We used to talk mostly about phishing, right, as the main way in. But these reports, they show vulnerability exploitation has just soared. It's hitting what, 20% of initial access now? That's a 34% jump year over year. Pretty staggering.
That 34%, it's not just a random number. It signals a really critical strategic pivot by attackers. And the data pinpoints exactly where they're focusing the edge. We saw the targeting of perimeter devices, things like your VPNs, routers, firewalls, and exploitation attacks, grow almost eightfold, 8 times compared to the year before. That's now 22% of all exploitation incidents.
Eightfold. Wow, that's massive. It tells us defenders can't just focus on internal servers or employee laptops anymore. It's these devices sitting right at the edge, often unmanaged, maybe forgotten. They're being hit hard.
Exactly right. We mean SOH routers, small office, home office, VPN appliances, various IoT things. The report specifically called out groups like Volt Typhoon, linked to China. They actively exploit known vulnerabilities in, like end-of-life routers, specifically to turn them into operational infrastructure.
Wait, hang on. Operational infrastructure, what does that actually mean? What do these routers become?
They get rolled into these anonymous networks called ORBs, operational relay boxes. So the attacker compromises maybe hundreds, thousands of these low-profile, unpatched devices all over the world. Once they're popped, they become covert stepping stones. For command and control C2 channels, the traffic just looks like normal internet noise from some random house, making it incredibly difficult to trace back or block. It's persistent, anonymous access built on stuff defenders just weren't really looking at before.
Hmm. That completely flips the script on network defense. And what's really interesting here is the sort of vulnerability paradox you mentioned. You'd think attackers are racing to use the
Yeah.
latest 0 days, right? But the reports say over 57% of successful exploits still target vulnerabilities published back in 2020 or even earlier. We're just not patching the basics consistently enough.
That gap, that failure in basic vulnerability management, it's systemic risk. And it's really interesting when you look at the motivation behind who's using these vulnerabilities. It quickly becomes a geopolitical thing.
Hmm.
Espionage motivated breaches, so state sponsored actors, they relied on vulnerability exploitation 70% of the time.
Yeah.
70%. And they're mostly hitting foundational stuff. Server is the most common asset in 95% of breaches and public facing web apps.
So the message for you listening is crystal clear that unpatched firewall or VPN box isn't just a target for some random cybercrime. It could literally be the foothold a nation state uses for persistent spying. Defending that physical edge, it's absolutely mission critical now for everyone. Okay, so if the edge is the new front door, let's pivot. What about the cybercrime economy itself? If organizations are maybe getting better at backups, making simple ransomware encryption less effective, where's the money coming from now?
Well, the shift is pretty significant. Ransomware was still present in 44% of the breaches reviewed, which is actually up quite a bit. But the tactics, they've evolved. We're seeing much more of a move away from just encrypting files towards data exfiltration extortion. They steal your data, sometimes huge amounts, terabytes even, and then threaten to leak it publicly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Encryption doesn't work if you have solid backups, but the threat of leaking sensitive data, the reputational hit is immediate, often irreversible.
Precisely. Yeah. And there is maybe a small silver lining in the ransomware numbers. The median ransom payment actually decreased down to about $115,000. And get this, 64% of victims didn't pay. That high non-payment rate suggests maybe organizations are getting better prepared, more resilient, which likely contributes to that lower median payout.
Okay, a small win. But here's where the criminals seem to have found their next big thing, and it feels like a major structural shift. The info stealer market. We saw, what was it, a 58% surge in info stealer infection attempts globally? That's huge.
This is the real story, I think, of the cybercrime pivot right now. Law enforcement takedowns, like Operation Endgame, were successful against some big traditional botnets. But the criminals didn't just quit, they decentralized. They pivoted to commodity malware, things like LumaStealer. And now, InfoStealers are pretty much the primary way they get initial access. They're flooding the dark web markets with stolen credentials.
And it's not just about passwords anymore, is it? I read the real gold is in the logs. What exactly are these logs? Why are they so effective?
Right, the logs. They're basically files containing everything the InfoStealer managed to scrape off an infected machine. That often includes saved logins, financial data, crypto keys, and critically, valid session cookies. These cookies represent an already authenticated session, maybe scraped from a browser on someone's personal laptop, an unmanaged device.
Hold on. How does a valid session cookie get around multi-factor authentication? Isn't MFA supposed to stop exactly this?
That's the key vulnerability. Standard MFA usually checks your factors at the point of login. But if an attacker steals an active session cookie, they don't need to log in again. They just present that cookie to the application, and the app thinks, oh, this is the legitimate user already authenticated. It's like stealing the car key after the engine's already running.
That is terrifying. It just undermines basic security assumptions completely. And the data connects the dots, right? 54% of ransomware victims had their company domain show up in InfoStealer logs before the main attack hit. So InfoStealers are like the recon phase, the feedstock for the bigger attacks.
Exactly. And we're seeing the direct, tragic consequences of this flood of credentials. Healthcare is now the second most targeted sector globally. Yeah. It's 10% of reported victims. And the impact, it's far beyond theoretical now.
Yeah, the sources had some really chilling examples. That ALPHV attack on United Health Group, disrupting U.S. military hospitals, stealing 6 terabytes of patient data, just massive. Or the Coilen Group hitting Synovis in London, demanding $50 million, leading to over 6,000 medical procedures being canceled. This isn't just financial loss anymore. It's causing real physical harm, disrupting critical infrastructure. Okay, this blurring of lines. Commodity info stealers enabling huge disruptive attacks like in healthcare. Yeah. It leads us right into the geopolitical landscape, where it's not just about stealing data, but actively undermining public trust.
That's a key strategic shift we're seeing with nation states.
Yeah.
Their objectives seem less focused on pure military disruption now and more on, well, conflicts designed to erode faith in institutions, to destabilize society from the inside out, often using information manipulation.
And AI is like pouring gasoline on that fire. The reports show generative AI is now basically standard practice in influence operations. AI was used in at least a third of global elections between late 2023 and early 2024.
Yeah, the playbook is becoming clear. We saw examples like Russian link groups, Copycop was mentioned, creating fake news videos with deep fake political figures, pushing them out on social media, and Chinese-aligned actors using AI-generated deepfakes that look like official public service announcements, but were actually designed to discredit certain candidates. The goal isn't always data theft. Sometimes it's just sowing confusion, breaking consensus.
And the financial incentives for using AI in crime are just staggering too. One study found AI automated phishing emails got a 54% click-through rate. That's 4.5 times better than the typical 12%. That kind of precision and automation, it offers criminals potentially 50 times the profitability.
And that profitability, it's absolutely crucial for regimes operating under sanctions. Take North Korea. The sources talk about their unique doctrine, sort of financial warfare. They blend high-end espionage with sophisticated financial crime, stealing crypto, ransomware attacks like Andariel hitting U.S. healthcare, basically, to fund the regime.
Their tactics get really insidious, too. I found the bit about North Korean operatives posing as remote IT freelancers particularly alarming. They try to get legitimate remote work with Western companies, ostensibly just to earn hard currency. But while they're doing that, they gain persistent, often privileged, access deep inside organizational networks.
It completely twists the idea of an insider threat, doesn't it? Suddenly, basic HR, vendor vetting, it becomes this critical global operational security challenge.
Yeah.
Forces you to ask, how much do we really trust any remote contractor with deep network access?
Wow. Okay. Despite this pretty bleak picture of edge attacks, info stealers, and AI threats, the reports did offer some glimmers of hope, some encouraging news on the defenders' side.
Absolutely. And it's significant progress. The incident response data shows we are getting better at spotting threats earlier. For the first time, security alerts themselves are the #1 trigger for engaging IR teams. That's in 35% of cases. It's overtaken things like service outages or system failures. That's a clear sign that internal security teams have better tools, better tech, and are developing better expertise.
And that better expertise, it translates into speed, right? The mean time to identify and contain a breach fell Quite a bit, actually, down to 241 days. That's a 9-year low. What's the main driver there? What's helping security teams cut down that containment time?
The primary driver seems to be automation, specifically the integration of AI-driven systems like extended detection and response or XDR. These systems automate a lot of that initial triage, the initial containment steps. It frees up human analysts from chasing false positives, letting them focus their energy on the confirmed high-priority threats.
Okay, so let's bring it on together. We've got edge vulnerabilities, the info stealer surge, the geopolitical AI threat, but also better detection. Based on all the COSO guidance we reviewed across these reports, what are the absolute most critical, actionable takeaways for you, the listener?
Okay, number one, without a doubt, identity first. You absolutely have to assume credentials are out there potentially compromised, even if they're behind standard MFA. MFA should never, ever be optional. But we need to move beyond just simple SMS codes or basic app push notifications now.
Right, because those session cookies are being stolen. And the reports mentioned ATM attacks, adversary in the middle being used to grab those session tokens. What's the concrete defense against that?
Yeah, ATM attacks essentially set up a fake login page, a proxy, between you and the real site, and they just grab the session cookie as it goes by.
Hmm.
To counter that, you really need phishing-resistant MFA, things like FIDO2 security keys, physical hardware tokens, and beyond that, rigorous scrutiny of your conditional access policies, continuous monitoring of session activity, especially logins coming from weird places, unmanaged devices, or foreign locations.
Makes sense. Okay, number two, cloud security. The reports highlighted attackers moving laterally, right? From a compromised user on prem straight into the cloud.
Yes, cloud security can't be an afterthought anymore. API security and identity management in the cloud have to be top priorities. If you don't have a zero trust architecture in place, you are exposed. Attackers are using those stolen credentials to pivot directly into cloud resources, steal data, mess with workloads. Zero trust basically means even if one identity gets compromised, the attacker can't just automatically move sideways across your whole network and into the cloud. Verify everything.
Got it. And finally, vulnerability management, that never ending patch list. How should teams prioritize given everything we've discussed?
Focus first on your external facing assets and critical systems. Given that huge eightfold surge in edge device attacks, those high risk appliances, your VPNs, firewalls, routers, need patching immediately. Keep them current. Prioritize those internet facing devices over maybe some older internal lower risk vulnerability from years ago. If your front door is wide open, polishing the furniture inside doesn't help much.
A really comprehensive deep dive. So the accelerated threat landscape boils down to the edge is the new perimeter, info stealers are the main way in, and nation states are using AI to weaponize influence at scale.
And maybe we should leave you with a challenging question, one that sits right at the intersection of all this data we've covered. If AI is speeding up both sides, making attacks 4.5 times more effective with phishing, enabling deepfakes for global influence, and it's speeding up defense, helping us detect and contain faster. What happens when a sophisticated nation-state attacker successfully combines that deep AI-driven persistence with the foundational scalable access they get from cheap commodity infostealer logs? How long can human defenders realistically keep pace with that kind of exponential acceleration curve?
That's the big strategic challenge facing every single organization in the year ahead. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back next time to help you make sense of the noise.